Alright, so last time we were actually probably on the epilogue of this one. So we were doing the in-between story with Detective Aksaka. And we actually just read the chapter where they saved the boy from being kidnapped. So it'll probably go back to the present. So I don't know how much will actually be left in this particular chapter. So let's get to it and see. That was my first time losing consciousness. You often hear of regaining consciousness on top of a bed, but this is my first time experiencing it. Hello? Are you okay? Realizing that I was awake, a young doctor called out to me. I didn't intend to respond, but it seemed my body language had told him I was conscious. My head was wrapped in bandages. The scratches all over my body had also been treated. My sense of pain also returned with my consciousness, causing me to groan from the intense pain shooting all throughout me. Don't try to get up. Just stay lying down, please. It seems you took quite a few blows to the head. I want you to stay rested so we can monitor your condition for at least the next 24 hours. Where is this? This is my clinic. Pleased to meet you. My name's Iri. I remembered that this young doctor was the one in the car headed the opposite way earlier. Is there somebody here? Where's Oishi-san? I'll call him over. There's no smoking inside the clinic, so I had him smoke outside. Dr. Iri left the room and to go call Oishi. Yummy. The scenery outside the window was tinted with gold. The pouring rain had stopped with the voices of the Higurashi heralding the cooling temperature. I felt that tone of the Higurashi's voices was comforting. Eventually, I could hear heavy footsteps coming closer, which I reckoned to be Oishi's. The fog that was enveloping my head slowly faded back to reality. What had happened since then? What happened to the boy? What about the reinforcements from Tokyo? The door to the room flew open, allowing Dr. Iri and Oishi to enter. So, there's no serious damage, is there? I can't promise that. I assessed the wound to his head was dangerous the moment I saw it. He has a southern accent. Got it. I want to have a little chat alone with him for a bit. Would you mind? Forgot he had a little southern accent. Yes, go ahead. Call me if anything happens. Oishi, after basically forcing Dr. Irie outside, shut the door. I had to write it in Japanese to figure out how it's actually pronounced. How are you feeling? God, I did something I'm really not used to, so I'm pretty banged up all over. Oishi brought over a folding chair that was leaning against the wall and sat down beside the bed. Were the perpetrators arrested? Unfortunately, no. They probably already fled to the prefecture or are being hidden by the villagers. Well, we won't let them get away. What about the minister's grandson? They're taking care of him at the station, but your colleagues from Tokyo are rather insistent that nothing be recorded. Shige-chan doesn't like that too much. The kidnapping was confidential, so his custody was also probably being kept under wraps. How the kidnapping of the minister's grandson would be handled, how it would be covered up, treated like it was never happened, would be handled by the brass. If this case ended without the nation going into an uproar about it, then our job had been done. The possibility that the minister had negotiated with the perpetrators couldn't be ruled out. But something like that was no longer my concern. My role in this case was over. Sorry for the trouble. You must think that public safety is a rather unseemly place, don't you? Now, we all work on the government's dime. She laughed boisterously. When we first met, I was somewhat prejudiced of him, but now that feeling was completely gone. It would be more convenient for us if this case was handled properly instead of being hidden away. I'm not sure who's talking. If that happened, we would be able to have something to go at the Sonozaki family with since they're behind it all. Well, if we just start poking around, we'll get all sorts of pressure put on us, though. What a mess! Are you going to continue the fight against the Sonozakis after this? Nah, there's all sorts of dark rumors swirling around them, but it's not like I have a personal grudge. It'd be wise not to step on any toes here. Well, she laughed happily, and I couldn't help but laugh along. Oh, that's right. There was word at the station from the prefectural police. Your colleagues arrived at Nagoya and are driving up here right now. You've got your battle scars, so you're being recalled to Tokyo, apparently. That's how it's shaken up. Good job! Your work in Okonomiya is safely over. I was being recalled to Tokyo. I inadvertently breathed a sigh of relief when I heard those words. I'm so thankful for your cooperation, Oishi-san. It seems the collaboration fee I paid you didn't go to waste. I kinda meant that as a joke, though. Oishi took out his wallet, casually pulled out several large bills, and jammed them into my breast pocket. This isn't a refund on the collaboration fee, you hear? This is just me gifting you a little spending money. The booze around here is pretty good. Use this to buy yourself a little souvenir. She flashed me a grin. If your injuries turn out not to be too serious, call me before you head back to Tokyo, will ya? The old man and Sato-san said they'd like to sit at a table with you again. I can't refuse that. And no tricks this time. Just some plain old fun. They always say that. This world is done for if an active officer can cheat that blatantly. It's not that often we meet someone who's more than a match for us. It's too bad you're going back to Tokyo. When I heard the words going back to Tokyo from Oishi, I was reminded once again that I was relieved from my duties. Soon, Yuki would be giving birth. It might still be possible to attend the delivery I had one time given up on. When I thought that, the pain from my injuries began trivial. I wanted to hurry back to her so bad. Can you pretend your injuries are a bit more serious and hang around Okonomiya for a bit? I can introduce you to a few nice places. Of course, I won't make you pay for everything. I'm sorry, but I'll have to take a rain check on that. My wife is gonna give birth any day now. I want to hurry back home. Oh my. I didn't know that. And you shouldn't be hanging around here. You have to hurry back home. For a while after that, Oishi asked all sorts of questions about my wife, teasing and bantering with me. Well then, how do you feel? Think you can get up? Yeah, it's not so bad, thanks to you. I can get up and walk no problem. I stood up and shuffled around for a bit, which seemed to amuse Oishi. Nah, I just thought you might not feel comfortable at a hospital in Hinamizawa. Dr. Irie said he wanted you to stay overnight. But we still haven't caught the perpetrators. For the time being, this is enemy territory for you after all. Are you saying this hospital isn't safe? Well, Dr. Irie is someone who's well regarded in this community. I don't think anything will happen while you're here, but I'm more worried about your mental health. I had relaxed a bit now that things had progressed this far, but it was exactly as Oishi had said. When I realized that this was enemy territory, I suddenly felt uncomfortable. With the only thing left for me to do was leave. The chance that I would come to harm was logically fairly low, but that didn't mean I was completely safe. That's right. If I'm going to be lying down, then doing it in any hotel bed will do. Right. I also think it's for the best. At that moment, I caught a glimpse of the clock over Oishi's shoulder. It was the evening. The hours when I could call Yuki at the hospital were almost over. I wanted to tell her as quickly as possible that I would soon be back at her side. I want to call Yuki at this hospital. Is there a public phone in the lobby? You newlyweds are all like this. If I'm called correctly, there's one by the register. I'll be waiting here, so go ahead. Or she's laughing when he said he was jealous. Opened up the window and pulled out a cigarette, even though he was in a hospital room. Appreciative at how considerate Oishi was, I set out to the lobby to find the phone. Are we gonna see Rika? The lobby was just a short distance down the hallway from the hospital room. I thought that this hospital was a bit too grand for a village like this, but of course, it was nothing compared to the general hospital Yuki was admitted to. Running inside a hospital wasn't the best of manners, but calling hours would soon end, so I dashed over in a hurry. There was nobody else in the lobby. It may have been the evening, but there was nobody at the reception desk. I mean, it's a small town. Well, this might actually be lucky for me. I wasn't planning to have a conversation to feel guilty about, but it would have still been embarrassing to have someone listen to the conversation between me and Yuki. Taking a quick look around, I soon found the payphone. Digging around in my pockets, I grabbed a few coins. I was calling Tokyo from here, so I'd burn through this amount fairly quickly. I picked up the receiver and inserted a coin, then dialed the number for Yuki's hospital, which I had completely memorized at this point. Bring, bring, bring. The number for Yuki's hospital had a lot of 8s and 9s, so dialing it inevitably took some time. Normally it wouldn't be a big deal, but currently any time was precious. However, I felt that something was strange as I was dialing in the number. I don't know exactly how to put it, but it was as if the receiver was too quiet. That unique white noise from the telephone line wasn't there. Somehow I felt I wasn't getting any feedback from the phone, and without feeling a response, I hung up the receiver to try again. The coin popped out from the return slot. I reinserted the coin and began dialing once again, but the receiver was still dead silent. What is this? Is it disconnected? While I was wasting time like this, the amount I had to spend with Yuki shrunk. I began to feel needlessly impatient. Excuse me. I felt presence of someone on the other side of the glass, so I called out. There was an immediate response, and a man who seemed like a pharmacist came over. Yes, how can I help you? Excuse me. This phone seems to be acting a little strange. Could you take a look at it? The man came over and tried testing various things with the receiver pressed to his ear. Come to think of it, this was someone who worked at the hospital, not a phone company. Just as I didn't know much about phones, neither would he. Huh? What's this? The man held up the cord that connected the phone to the wall. It was completely severed. What the heck is that? Well, this is a dilly of a pickle. Can't do anything with this until someone from the phone company comes and fixes it. I don't know why a pharmacist is like nerdy sounding, but he is. If you're looking for a phone, do you want to use the one in the office? I didn't want the people in the hospital office around while I was talking. Is there another payphone close by? Is he going to end up in the payphone that cage he died in? Let's see. If you leave here and follow the road, you'll come out into the shopping district. I think there's a smoke shop on the corner around there. If you head that way, you should be able to find one soon enough. I was dressed in a hospital gown. I was wearing sandals on my feet. My head was wrapped in bandages. Just looking at me, you could tell I was from a hospital. No matter how you looked at it, I was not dressed to be wandering outside. But that's where the impetuousness of youth came in. Choosing the chance to talk to Yuki for even a little longer, I headed outside in my current state. Follow the road to the shopping district. Should be able to find one soon enough. With only those 2 lines as my guide, I ran outside the gates of the hospital. With the village nestled in a valley, when the sun set, it got dark quickly. The sparse streetlights lit up enough to start attracting moths. The Higurashi, knowing the time for their chorus was soon at a close, redoubled their fragile cries. Finding the payphone wasn't as easy as the person in the hospital had suggested. Was it still up ahead? Did I miss it? Was I just getting farther? Just as I was about to be crushed by the wave of uncertainty towering over me, I found a small shop with cigarettes written on the sign. My joy spurred me onwards. Just as I had heard at the hospital, set next to the counter of the cigarette shop was an antiquated payphone. I really want to know if this is the same one that Keiichi died in one of his loops. I wasn't wearing a watch, so I didn't know what time it was. I probably didn't have much time left, though. Okay, so we know he doesn't die because at the beginning of this chapter, he's in Tokyo, reminiscing about this. Maybe just comes and scares him. But it was enough. Just as long as I could tell Yuki my job was done, and I'd be coming home soon. Picking up the receiver, I slid a coin down the slot. But I felt that something was strange, just like at the hospital. Even after inserting the coin, the phone showed no response. I hung up the receiver, and tried putting in the coin one more time, but there was absolutely nothing. This phone was dead. It couldn't be. Thinking that, I felt along the cord that protruded from the back of the phone. Doing that, my hands found the end of a completely severed line. What is this? Having now had the same thing happen twice, my bafflement was accompanied by a sense of unease. It seemed the cord had been severed cleanly by a sharp blade of some sort. And I may be mistaken, but it didn't look like much time had passed since it was cut. Excuse me? Hello? Opening up the booth window of the tobacco shop, I looked for someone in the dimly lit interior. Eventually, there were the sounds of someone plodding down some stairs, and an old lady appeared. The old lady's plodding and lethargic steps for some reason only served to make me more frantic. You need some cigarettes? I'll need to get my husband. No, I'm not here to buy cigarettes. Rather, this phone here. Realizing that saying the phone was broken and asking them to take a look at it was going to get me nowhere, I swallowed back my words. Sorry, it seems that this phone is broken, and I was wondering if you could tell me where there's another payphone? The old lady moved her jaw up and down slowly, as if chewing on the meaning of my words. It seemed that she wouldn't understand until she had digested things thoroughly. So the phone is broken? That's a dilly of a pickle. That's weird. You should try another payphone. That other guy said the exact same thing. The old lady directed me to another payphone that seemed quite a ways away. Dude, just go back. You're gonna get so lost. And believe me, I have been lost in Japanese villages, very small Japanese villages. It's not fun. I literally went to this, it was, the festival was awesome. I went to this festival, like in the middle of nowhere. But the train stopped running, so then I got stuck out there. I couldn't figure out how to get back at all. Now granted, this is when I first moved to Japan, so like I wasn't sure how the things worked. But yeah, I got stuck in the middle of nowhere and like went into a 7-Eleven, and this was, I mean, my Japanese was fine, but not as good as it was now. And like had to call a taxi, and taxis are really expensive here. Okay, don't. But the festival was really cool. Anyways, you can get lost very easily. It's true crap. Okay. Her way of telling me was so long-winded that I inadvertently started getting impatient. At that moment, I spotted a clock in the dim interior of the store. The minute hand was just about to point straight up. Wouldn't Oishi be wondering where you are? Even if there was a phone right here that I could use, I would only be able to tell Yuki good night with the time I had left. On top of that, my destination was a remote payphone, which I didn't know the exact distance to. If I was in a normal state of mind, deciding to give up the phone today would have been the natural thought process. But at that moment, I had become somewhat stubborn for some reason. Unable to use the hospital phone, coming out here and still being able to use one, there was no mistaking I had become quite insistent on using a phone. Thank you very much. I'll try looking for that phone booth. Refusing her offer to draw me a map, I left the tobacco shop. It's like he's asking to be murdered. According to the old lady, even though the phone booth was quite far away, it would be easy to find. If I just followed this road straight down, I'd eventually find it. Sandals flapping as I ran, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. I'll admit, I was quite steadfast about calling Yuki. But there were days when I was tired or busy when I wouldn't call her. Even today, my entire body was covered with injuries and I was so tired. On top of that, there wasn't much time left. It wouldn't be strange at all if today was one of those days I didn't call her. But having twice been foiled trying to call her, had I become just hot-headed about it? Was I like a dog who was being told to stay with a piece of food dangling in my face? What am I doing? Even so, I somehow couldn't quell the uneasy feeling sitting in the pit of my stomach. It was like that with the hospital phone, and the same with the one at the tobacco shop. Both cords were definitely not severed from being frayed by long years of use. The clean cuts indicated that someone had taken something sharp and deliberately cut them. But who? And why? The more I thought about it, the uneasier I felt. So I tried to push the thought aside. How much had I run? The scenery around me was no longer that of a shopping district, with residential buildings scattered about the lonely road. The surroundings had already grown dark. Now he's going to the one where Keiichi died in the first chapter. I was blatantly out too far for a quick phone call, and it was quite obvious I was far removed from the hospital. I recalled the clock I saw at the tobacco shop. It might almost be time. I had run for quite a bit, so my breathing had grown quite ragged. If I had just wanted to hear Yuki's voice, I should have just thrown away my reservations and borrowed the phone in the office. I regretted it a little. Well then, was it about time to give up? Just when I thought that, I saw the light in front of me. I found it. It was the phone booth. It seemed the light in the phone booth had recently been changed, and as it shone with a vivid white light. Although in the gloom of Hinamizawa, it was nothing more than a gathering spot for moths. But in any case, I finally found it. As my hand touched the door of the phone booth, I realized I was breathing and sweating heavily. I didn't know what time it was, but even if just for a moment, I might be able to get in touch with Yuki. Since I had spent all the effort getting here, turning back without even giving it a try was out of the question. Before I picked up the receiver, another wave of uneasiness washed over me. I was worried this phone cord might be severed as well. How was the cord in this phone booth? Squatting down, I followed the bundle of cables as they ran along the corner to the ceiling. At a glance, nothing was out of the ordinary. I ran my fingers as far as I could along the line to check it out. The only thing they found was a thick layer of dust. Nothing out of the ordinary. I wondered if it was popular in Hinamizawa to cut the cords of payphones as some sort of tasteless prank. It might be prudent to talk to Oishi-san about this later. Even if it was nothing more than a prank, it still was vandalism of public property. In any case, this one was fine. This time. Pulling out a coin from my pocket with one hand, I picked up the receiver with the other. But this time, before the receiver even reached my ear, I felt something was off. The receiver was light. It was more than a slightly unpleasant feeling. It felt almost sickening. To verify the source of my displeasure, I peered at the receiver in my hand with a measure of reluctance. What the hell is this? The coiled cord that connected to the rest of the phone had been ripped apart, the tip of the cable swaying in the air. It was all I could do to restrain myself as a raw and unpleasant feeling worked its way up the small of my back. It was a type of dread. At that moment, I heard the crunch of somebody stepping on gravel. The light was reflecting off the glass walls of the booth, leaving me unable to see outside into the darkness. I steeled myself and stepped out of the phone booth. The inside of the booth was lit with that strong light, which might have made it warmer in there. Just stepping outside, I could feel a chill wash over me. And there was the silhouette of a person. A small silhouette. The long hair of the silhouette was blown by the cool breeze. Injured people shouldn't be sneaking out of the hospital. Somewhere in my head, I knew who this girl was. I didn't have any basis for it, but I knew that she was that girl. Right, Akasaka? She Rika Furude said that almost like it was a warning. Did you do this to the phone cord? Her expression remained unchanged, and my question was left unanswered. In other words, no response. Regardless, I felt she had affirmed my suspicions. Why would you do something like this? Why? The last word had a tinge of anger behind it. I frantically tried to smooth things out, but she didn't seem very afraid. There's nothing that can be done. Huh? I interpreted her words as meaning that I wasn't going to be in time for calling hours at the hospital. But thinking about that would have been a strange thing to say. Why would she know something like that? I could take what she had said to have any other meaning. She just stood there like a mannequin, not even moving an inch. Almost to the point that if the wind wasn't occasionally rustling through her long hair, there would have been the illusion that time had stopped. Probably did. I know very well that you think I'm disgusting, Aksaka. Huh? No, that's not true. My denial came out almost like a piece of bad poetry slam, but her words were right on the mark. I had always felt something ominous and uncanny about her. Ever since her strange threats at the shrine. She had noticed my expression was contrary to my words, seemingly laughing at the gap between them. Akasaka, you coward. I'm not a coward. Being laughed at by this small child didn't sit well with me, so I said it. Even if you find another phone, it's too late. That's right. She didn't even have to say it. I was absolutely too late. I might have already missed calling hours even by the time I reached this phone booth. I was too late. I had no option but to give up for today. Once I decided that, my unhealthy obsession with phones suddenly faded. Even I thought it was strange that I was obsessed. That strange obsession now gone, I began to laugh at how hopeless I was. I mean, just look at what I'm wearing. It wasn't normal. A hospital gown? Sandals? My head wrapped in bandages, my body completely soaked in sweat. It was a wonder the old lady at the tobacco shop wasn't surprised to see me. With wanting to hear Yuki's voice as my motive, I have traipsed around the town the entire evening. I don't know whether to call it the follies of youth or just plain embarrassing. In any case, it was all I could do to just laugh at myself. Now, there's nothing left for Aksaka to do tonight. You're right, there is nothing. I'll just quietly return to the hospital. That's fine. Do you know the way? I hope I do. She waved her little hand as I began to head back the way I came. She began to follow alongside me. Looking at her face, I could see she wore a mischievous smile, as if she was extremely interested in whether or not I would get lost. Is Rika-chan's house also this way? It is. Won't your parents be mad that you're walking around alone at this hour? Not really. My parents are busy today, so they probably forgot about me. Even then, it's best if you head on home. They'll definitely be angry. Even if they are, it's much more interesting to talk with Aksaka, so I'm fine. She said that with a face free from worry as she looked up at me once more and smiled. So in this timeline, I don't think her parents are dead yet. I never knew something so cute could be so terrifying. Oh wait, me. Although not that kind of terrifying. Right. When she showed that showed me that smile, the eerie feeling surrounded her faded. But even then, she was still as mysterious to me as ever. We arrived at the corner I had turned at earlier, but it was much darker than before, and with the point of view changed on the return trip, I wasn't very confident that this was actually the corner I turned at. That's not a mistake. It has to be this corner. As I began to move my feet again, the girl grabbed me. Isn't Akasaka going back to the hospital? Of course. At least I intend to. Am I going the wrong way? A short moment of silence. Eventually, still holding on to my clothes, she began to walk. It was the beginning of the walk to the hospital this mysterious girl would take me on. Is she going to show her true colors? Are you going to see her true colors? The person who was running around cutting all the phone cords was you, wasn't it, Rika? You shouldn't do that. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Really? She tried to play dumb, but it was written all over her face. Ipa! It was obvious she was trying to laugh it off, but that adorable smile of hers just made me want to forgive her. I'm gonna be a horrible father, aren't I? That momentary lapse in tension was erased by her next words. It's good they found the grandson safe and sound. Unable to respond right away, I sunk into silence. I had already learned this from Sato-san's info, didn't I? This girl, no, this entire village knew everything since the moment I set foot in it. I considered playing dumb, but in the end I chose not to. With everything being known already, there was no point in me feigning ignorance. Somehow. That's great. Now you can go back to Tokyo. Thank you. Are your injuries bad, Akasaka? I don't know. I haven't heard anything from the doctor yet, so I don't know if they are or not. Wouldn't you know? Wouldn't it be like really, really hurting? Huh? Come to think of it, I feel like the, what do you call it? The Hinamizawa curse got to him a little bit, which is why he was being all weird. I vaguely remember being told to lie down and take it easy for at least 24 hours. Did that mean bed rest? The wounded shouldn't be sneaking out of the hospital. People shouldn't be cutting phone cords. Meep. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I don't know what you're talking about either. As we played dumb with each other, we both laughed at the same time. If somebody saw us laughing like this, it would probably bring a smile to their lips. Oh no, every time we look at the moon, something bad happens. The chances of Akasaka leaving this village alive weren't very high. I don't want Akasaka to die, so I'm glad you're leaving the village alive. Rika, did you know what I was, right from the beginning? She said nothing, but gave a firm nod. Well then, I think you know this, but we're probably somewhat of an enemy to the people in this village, I would think. But you still gave me lots of warnings. That's right. She said it at that time. She wouldn't warn somebody that she was okay with dying. She definitely had said something like that. Okay, maybe Rika / Oyashiro-sama is not evil, but... No, I mean, we know that Oyashiro-sama is not evil. It's just trying to protect the village. That's why in the one chapter when Rika died, the poison leaked out and killed everyone in the village. Then I should probably be thanking you. You probably should. I'm your savior. Saying that, she puffed up her chest proudly. She said it jokingly, but the meaning behind those words were quite heavy. That was because whether I lived or died was a decision that might have been made in a place unbeknownst to me. She said those words with such an adorable smile that it took a few moments of silence for their weight to settle in. I'd been to this place before. The Defense Alliance office was there. It was the stone steps leading up to the Furude Shrine. When I passed by before, I was so focused on finding the phone booth I hadn't realized where I was. If I recall correctly, this shrine is Rika-chan's house, right?
Something like that.
Looking up at the shrine grounds, it was brightly lit and energetic voices could be heard. What was going on?
There's a
Oh, fuck.
There's a festival today.
A festival?
The best and only festival in Hinamizawa. The Watanagashi Festival.
Watanagashi? Cotton drifting?
Just knowing the name is boring. Do you want to take a look?
She asked bluntly. But seeing that I looked interested, she climbed up a couple of steps and motioned for me to come. Remember, he's in a hospital gown. I was only going to go back and sleep anyways. If I had nothing else to do, it might not be a bad idea to go on with a little detour. Except for the whole village wants you dead. But I guess you're with Rika, so. In the hostile territory that was this village, I didn't know what would happen if I ventured down a side road without Oishi. Even though I thought of the village like that, when I was with this girl, I forgot all about it. In any case, even without anything to back it up, I felt that as long as I was with her, none of the ill will from the village would befall me. That's why, even though I knew my cover was blown, I strangely had no qualms about setting foot into the heart of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance's territory in a nightgown. Climbing up the grounds of the shrine, I could see there were about 3 pavilions set up with meeting tables and folding chairs. The old folks from the village, the executive of the Defense Alliance, were already quite drunkenly sharing another round of drinks. I could only see it as people from the village council drinking while enjoying the evening air. At the very least, it was certainly quite different from any festival I'd ever seen.
See? It's quite a boring festival, isn't it?
This certainly doesn't look like a festival.
It's a festival that happened since long ago. But as you can see, it's not like it used to be.
As if to chide the old folk, she said that while looking at them with an exasperated expression. You really couldn't call this a festival anymore. It was just a bunch of neighbors getting together to drink under the guise of a festival. I feel sorry for the deity being celebrated here. Oh, once again, she's reading the future.
Give this sorry excuse for a festival 5 or 6 more years, then everybody in the village will start coming. The ceremony will also be done properly, and it'll be a respectable festival again.
What she said was not so much wishful thinking as it was telling of a future that had already been determined. So the one thing that I just don't know is if she's actually reading the future or if she's already gone through the future, because I've already predicted that this is like a Steins Gate type of thing. But I think the Steins Gate type of thing happens that on that week that Keiichi dies and gets reset. So she might actually be telling the future here. And it did say in one of the things that Furude was, they were fortune tellers, so I could believe that she's actually telling the future and that the Steins Gate thing doesn't really start happening until the main part of the story. This is the prologue, remember? This is as she said, 5 or 6 more years before the main story events happen. She wasn't even predicting it. It was almost like she was simply reporting the results. That's how it sounded. Even though it was baseless speculation, the way she said it wouldn't let me interject. It was the same way she talked when she changed. While I struggled to find the words to reply to her, she wandered over to the side of the grounds, not minding me at all. Not in a state where I could afford to be left behind, I hurriedly followed after her. Give me 1 second. My eyes were kind of dry, so I had to put some contact solution in them. Oops. Where is this going? What is a copse? A copse of pine trees? Is that like a bunch of pine trees? Alright. Passing through a copse of pine trees, a strong and cool breeze ruffled my hair. There, from that one evening, was the splendid observation platform the girl had shown me. As it grown completely dark, the modest lights littered across the nightscape were providing a different type of scenery.
Looking at it like this, the village seems tranquil.
She said that with an indifferent look on her face. Who's talking?
Just the other day, you said that this village...
Oh, just the other day you said that village definitely wouldn't be submerged by the dam, didn't you? She didn't reply, seemingly relishing in the feeling of the wind blowing through her hair. Didn't that mean, at that point in time, the minister had already compiled the demands? She spun around, her gaze meeting mine, but she said nothing. She spoke nothing that would neither confirm nor deny what I had said. This case will probably remain shrouded in darkness. Headquarters probably doesn't want a scandal with the minister breaking out.
There's no mistake
Wait, who is talking? I don't know who's talking.
There's no mistake that they threatened to kill the grandchild.
Then negotiations with the minister were successful and the grandson was released.
The one who saved the grandson was you.
I wonder about that. The discovery of that wallet that started this chain of events, that alone was too convenient, I think. Ever since that moment that wallet was discovered, I felt something was odd. The way she said it as well. That the Sonozaki family had given the order to release the hostage, meaning that our little manhunt was a farce to begin with. Come to think of it, I was punched, kicked, had a gun pointed at me. I felt like they put up quite a fight, but maybe it was just part of a good performance. Once the negotiations were successful, they couldn't just say, "Here you go," and return the minister's grandson right to his doorstep. They knew that public safety had realized that this was a kidnapping case and were moving in on it. That's why, due to the actions of public safety, the grandson was able to be rescued safely. So the minister didn't give in to any unreasonable demands. That type of performance was necessary.
I don't know about these difficult things.
Likewise. Even for me, I can't make much sense of it. But there's one thing I can be certain of. It's just as you said. This village won't be submerged. The dam project will soon be over. That wasn't something an officer of the law should be saying. But I naturally let those words slip from my mouth. This village may have stirred up all sorts of trouble, but that was because they were protecting their homes. If someone just decided by themselves that I had to leave the house I was used to living in, I would resent them as well. On top of that, wasn't a place like mine where I just happened to be renting it, but a place that their families had lived for generations. It might be ignorant to call their desperate resistance an overreaction. I might not really be qualified to criticize politics or bureaucracy, but deliberately building a dam on land that was loved by its residents wasn't something I could get behind.
Still, aren't you glad?
Why would that be?
At the very least, with this, peace will return to the village.
Even though the minister promised to use his considerable influence to cancel the project, it would probably take more than a few months before it would be completely scrapped. And at the very least, it would probably take 1 or 2 years. For the villagers to officially hear that their village wasn't going to be submerged at the bottom of the dam was still a ways away. But it was no mistake that the promise of peace returning to the village was there. It turned out from beginning to end that it had already been decided. Just as the girl had said, it was decided. There wasn't really a need for me to come here in the first place. There was absolutely no need for me to come here, aggravate an unpleasant situation. If I had never come here, then the grandson's release might have been done in a more amicable manner.
Peace? In this village?
When I nodded, she laughed as if to admonish me, but her face remained indifferent, expressionless. And then her eyes narrowed slightly as she snickered.
Even though every year from now on, something bloody will occur.
Rika, what are you talking about? As the wind blew her hair about, the girl, as if taking pleasure in that I was the only one who didn't know, continued to snicker as she looked at my face for a while.
You see, in a few years, I'll be killed.
Huh? Backlit by the moon, it was hard to tell if her expression that had been cast in the shadow was smiling amused or resigned. Why?
It's a very unpleasant thing, though. It's also probably been decided already.
Decided? Who would decide that sort of thing?
I'd like to know that as well.
Turning back to face me, she showed a resolute expression for the first time. And after staring into my eyes for a moment, she turned back to gaze at the scenery before she spoke her next words.
There's a lot of people who have no regard for human life. Even if I tell you this, it might not change anything though. But if you want to erase the specter of death, sometimes, like with the reflection of the moon on the water, all you have to do is throw a small stone.
I wonder if Keiichi's that small stone. I had no idea what she was trying to say. It's just, I had to listen to every word with my body and soul. At least that's what I thought.
This day next year, yes, June 1979, on this day, the foreman of the dam construction project will be killed.
What? For a moment I couldn't comprehend what she was talking about. By the foreman, did she mean that gruff old man I played mahjong with? Be killed? What makes you think? She didn't answer. But she had the same expression on her face as she did when she declared the dam project would go away. That wasn't the face of someone making a forecast or a prediction. It was something that was already decided. No. It was as if she was already reporting the results, that sort of expression.
torn apart and disposed. Murdered and dismembered? The next year, in June of 1980 on this day, Satoko's parents will be pushed to their deaths.
Satoko? It was the first time I heard that name, but I didn't have the courage to interrupt the girl's story.
It might be an accident, an unfortunate accident.
The girl smiled faintly, but she wasn't exactly encouraging me to smile along with the lifeless look in her eyes.
And then, the year after that, this day, in June of 1981, my parents will be killed. And then, the year after that, this day, in June of 1982, Satoko's abusive aunt will have her head split open and die. And then, the year after that, this day, in the June of 1983, or possibly a few days after, I will be killed.
If all these deaths are preordained, then the last one would... Oh, wait.
If all these deaths are preordained, then the last one would also be according to plan. But then, whose plan would it be? This village is full of murderers and people who have no regard for human life. It would be fine to believe that all the deaths up to 1982 would be the work of someone in the village. It would be fine to believe that all the deaths that would occur were at the discretion of those who control the village. But that didn't explain what would happen in 1983. There was no way the last death would fit in anybody's plans. They had no regard for human life. They would use every means at their disposal to meet their goals. But their goals were at odds with the last death. That's why the last death is unrelated to them. But the last death would definitely, most likely, probably, without question, happen. Probably, definitely, I dare say. The last death would be a merciful one. A handkerchief or something being placed over their mouth, making them lose consciousness, never to wake up again. Exactly whose plan was that? I want to live. That's my only wish. Surrounded by my precious friends, spending our days enjoyably. Only that. I don't wish for anything more than that. Rika, I don't want to die.
The girl, stoic as ever, let those last words slip in the end. Eventually, we were discovered by some drunks. The girl, as well as I, were dragged back to the festivities. Everyone was completely drunk, so even when they saw my head completely wrapped in bandages, they wouldn't let me leave. Well, certainly if I was in a good enough condition to slip out of the hospital, it might not be that serious. The girl was mingling with everybody, being pampered like a kitten. Her expression was adorable, nothing like this, the one from before. Predicting her own death and whispering she didn't want to die. Having said that, having a silly and lively conversation like this, it was hard to believe that these people were the core of an extremist resistance group. Even if it was a shell of its former self, it was a festival where people in the village gathered. So the 20-some-odd folk here should have included some of the village members, or important members. Among those, there was no doubt that there were members that were at the Sonozaki family council in attendance. Meaning, even if we never met face to face before, there were people here who knew my identity. In a small village like this, they all knew the faces of the villagers that lived here. That's why, without even saying anything, it soon became obvious that I was an outsider. But they actually seemed interested by that, asking me all sorts of questions about Tokyo, drinking while musing on the faint relationship the city had with the villagers and empathizing with the rather meager environment. The confidential talks with the minister were finished, his grandson was in police custody, everything was over. I might not have to be put in another perilous situation. To me, they were only my adversaries because of my job. Outside of that, there was no reason I couldn't be friendly with them. The next time I visited this village, would it return to being tranquil and beautiful? If that happened, I might be able to take a relaxed walk around the village with her again. My cup was once again filled to the brim with beer. By the time I was able to get away, it was the middle of the night. The girl had some point disappeared. It seems her parents had told her to go home and sleep when she let out a large yawn. The old folks, who had absolutely no remorse for making an injured person hang out with them, told me as much as they laughed. I was just there drinking, so I had thought to help a bit with cleanup. However, my help was refused on the grounds that I was a guest. On top of that, they had a car prepared to take me back to the hospital. Losing the battle against my sleepiness inside the car, I was sound asleep until we reached the parking lot of the hospital. The front door of the hospital was naturally locked at this hour. I wandered around bewilderedly searching for a back entrance until somebody on night duty found me and let me inside. Where were you this late at night? Dr. Ieri was worried, you know. Ieri was worried. Sorry for the trouble. I was held up by the people having a festival at the shrine. Oh, they did say something about everybody in the town council getting together for a drink. My condolences. Are your wounds all right? They're throbbing a bit. It's probably because of the alcohol, I think. Oh, that's right. The detective that was with you wanted to get in touch. Oh, I kept him waiting. I'm surprised you didn't go looking for him. I glanced at the clock. No matter how you looked at it, it was way too late to call him now. I'll apologize to him tomorrow over the phone. I returned back to my hospital room and slipped into the bed that was still unmade from the time I went outside. Ugh, dummy. I have to turn off the lights. But my weariness had cut the cord powering my body, lulling me into a deep sleep. Damn. There's a lot of things brought up with Rika's prediction there. Or not prediction.